So at this point, it is safe to say that the battle for, well, North Ukraine, I suppose Kiev more accurately, is being well and truly won by the Ukrainians. And it will no doubt go down in history as probably one of the areas to study in not only modern war, most definitely because the amount of drones that have been used in this conflict, not only for reconnaissance purposes, but we've seen them used for like artillery spotting, mortar spotting, suicide drones that will just, they launched and then just seek out, drove straight into the target. Then you've got the Bayraktar, all that crazy, drone stuff that's been going on over there, which has been fascinating to see develop. And I think that we can now say that drone warfare is going to become a huge part of modern warfare, with a whole new series of advances that we've not been able to really predict or even foresee yet. But ultimately, one of the big things, of course, is that this whole invasion will now become part of the Ukrainian national mythos. As we said before, you look back at any other national mythos, sometimes you will see invasions not only fortify but strengthen the idea of a nation even more than before. So in this fact, Vladimir Putin has truly and well, he's failed on that front. But of course, one of the other key things they still indeed love to talk about is, of course, the idea of NATO and how, oh, it's so much of a problem. I don't want NATO to get any stronger. And yet, Putin, by invading Ukraine, has, by the looks of it at this point, guaranteed that Finland and even Sweden are going to join NATO. Something that prior to this was pretty much seen as not going to happen. So once again, the consequence of this, again, Russian invasion of Ukraine has not only strengthened NATO, but given people like myself on the left a reason to talk about NATO as being a positive thing, and something that we should definitely be keeping as the idea of like a defensive alliance, because ultimately, if Ukraine had been in NATO, this invasion would just not have happened. So anyway, let's get into this article, because we have some very interesting comments from, again, people in Sweden and Finland about them wanting to join NATO. So anyway, let's get onto those comments, because those comments are quite interesting. There's what I want to cover. So as always, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll not see you all soon, but yeah, we'll see you. We'll say that after the video is done. Anyway, on with the article. This comes from The Guardian with the title of "Sweden and Finland Make Moves to Join NATO." Sweden's ruling party has begun debating whether the country should join NATO, and neighbouring Finland expects to reach a decision within weeks, as Moscow warned that the Nordic nations' accession would not bring stability to Europe. Both countries are officially non-aligned militarily, but public support for NATO membership has almost doubled since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, by about 50% in Sweden and 60% in Finland, with multiple opinion polls that now suggest. Again, before this would have just been not an issue. No one would have said anything about this. This was, why are we joining NATO? We don't see this as a viable thing. But now all of a sudden, we're joining NATO. It's something that again was built into their national consciousness of, look, we support NATO in some ways, but we'd never join it unless we were attacked, and then we would join NATO. But now actually physically joining NATO, obviously everything that entails, and obviously you've had the German rebuild up of their military, now massively increase their military spending, which is going to increase the German capacity for war, let's say it no other way, has been massively increased. Again, all because of this. And Vladimir Putin said, all of this that has happened, he didn't want to do or provoke in any way, but he's done it. He's provoked it. It's just going to go, what? Oh. So anyway, the other thing, they'll get on to back list. Sweden's central-left Social Democrats, led by Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson, said that their security review was about more than just joining the 30-nation alliance, adding that the party could decide to apply even without the backing of members. Having stressed at the outbreak of war that a non-alignment had served Sweden's interest well, Andersson said that they was ready to discuss the policy of a light in light of Moscow's aggression, and in the late March when she said she did not rule out joining NATO. When Russia invaded Ukraine, Sweden's security position changed fundamentally. The party has said in a statement on Monday that the Social Democrat General Secretary Tobias Bolden said the security review would be completed before summer. The question, again, would be expected to be a very key issue in the parliamentary elections due on the 11th of September, with the centre-right opposition parties already saying that they would back a NATO application, and even the far-right Sweden Democrats also open to the idea. So, again, you can just see how popular joining NATO has become. And in Finland, that of course shares at least an 830-mile border with Russia, and like Sweden is a NATO partner after abandoning its position for strict neutrality at the end of the Cold War, it is expected to now outline its decisions regarding the alliance before midsummer. Alexander Stubb, the former Prime Minister of Finland, told AFP it was a foregone conclusion that Helsinki would apply to join NATO, probably in June for a NATO summit being held in Madrid. The Government Commission-led National Security Review is due to be delivered in Parliament next week to help Finnish MPs decide on the question before they vote. One in a recent poll suggesting that only six of the country's 200 MPs were actually opposed. So you can just see how this act of Russian aggression has now just completely flipped the tables on this question, especially in Finland. He said, "We will have to have very careful discussions, but it is not making any more. But it's not taking any more time than we have to." The country's Prime Minister Sanna Marin said last week. "I think we will end the discussion before even midsummer," she said. Both countries have received public assurances from the NATO Security General Stoltenberg that their applications would be welcome, as well as an expression of support from several members, including the US, the UK, Germany, France, and Turkey. But the move would almost certainly be seen as a as a provocation by the Kremlin, whose spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said on Monday that the alliance was, quote, a tool geared towards confrontation, and that their possible ascension will not bring stability to the European continent. Again, like I say, this is the last thing that Russia actually wanted to happen. But again, the entire invasion of Ukraine was something that Russia really shouldn't have done. And of course, now the entire at least conflict is shifting towards the Eastern Theatre, and we are probably going to see that heat up maybe the end of this week, maybe the start of next week. We are seeing all those troops that, again, were in sort of like the north of Kiev and in and around there have been basically pulled out and being sent eastwards. So once they get there and they're in position, we can fully expect to see more action taking place on that front. But as I've always said right from the very start, I think what Putin basically intends to do is take the Donbass and Luhansk region, and of course, again, up from the Crimea part, and join that up and basically just say, this is ours now. We're ready to negotiate. And by the way, we're not leaving. And let's just have that as their negotiating position. This is ours. Come and get it. I think that's his negotiate. That's what he wants to do. Of course, can the Ukrainians force him back? With what we've seen of how bad, of course, the Russian military fared, especially in and around Kiev, possibly. But of course, the East, as before, is a completely different kettle of fish. We have seen at least the Russian military over there at least be a bit more effective than they were doing their dash toward Kiev. But who knows? Who knows what could happen? Who knows what could happen a month from now, 2 months from now? We generally don't know in this type of thing. But Sweden and Finland joining NATO, something that was never going to happen before this. Well, thank you, Putin, for, well, essentially strengthening NATO. So with that, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and an organizational link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.